Well, we made it to the finish line. We're talking about the season 1 finale, chapter 8, episode 8 of Perry Mason. Does Perry Mason win the trial? Does baby Charlie get justice? What do I want to see in a season 2 of Perry Mason? We're talking about that and much more. Season 1, Episode 8 of Perry Mason. Season 1 finale. After the team receives some critique from Hamilton Berger, Della presents an increasingly stubborn Mason with her case for putting Emily on the stand. As the sentimental trial winds to a close, Mason, Strickland, Della, and Drake attempt to tie up loose ends and set the stage for their futures. Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot here with my last review of Season 1 of Perry Mason. We're talking about the Season 1 finale, Chapter 8, Episode 8 of this show. Very excited to let you all know what I thought about this finale, what I thought about the season, what I hope to see in the future of the show, and we're breaking it all down in this spoiler discussion. Before we dive into it, as you all can see on the screen now, make sure you follow me on all my other social media accounts. That way you can know what's going on here at Movie Files. If you are new to the channel, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my new content. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Helps out the channel, but I also really appreciate it. And last but not least, these last 8 weeks have been fantastic with the fan base. Let me know your comments below in the comment section, your pros, your cons of the finale, the season, your theories, your hopes and dreams for season 2. Let's just have a fun discussion in the comment section, because again, I can't thank you guys enough for the continued support. It's been a journey from episode 1 to episode 8, so I can't be more appreciative of you guys' support. So let's have some discussions in the comments about this finale and this show as a whole. So overall thoughts of finale, I thought it was a solid wrap up. It had some really good moments. It set the stage for a season 2. I still think episode 7 was my favorite of the season, but we get some things that were tied up in this episode that we're definitely going to recap and break down. So in the comments, again, to start your comedy now, let me know your overall thoughts in this finale. And as we've been doing for these last 8 episodes, and again, before I even dive into it, when I do these reviews for HBO shows, Netflix shows, Hulu shows, Amazon shows, whatever the case may be, I really do these for you guys because I love the interaction. I love the community. I love talking to you all about these shows that we love. Agreeing or disagreeing with things, it's just a fun conversation. So again, I can't thank you guys enough for the continued support and can't wait to be back for another HBO show come next week, which we'll talk about at the end of this video. But with that being out of the way, let's do our weekly recap and give you my thoughts on it. So first and foremost, we kick the episode off with, we see Birdie. She's battered. She's bleeding. Her head's bleeding. She's worried about her daughter, Alice. Where is she at? Why can't you guys find her? She's wearing all white. She can't be hard to find. A lot of you all speculated that, well, not a lot of you all. Someone had mentioned in the comments last week that they thought they heard a screeching hulk of a car brake. So someone thought that maybe Allison was killed, maybe hit by a car. We know what happens to her. So that wasn't the case, but that would have been an interesting angle to take. But we'll get to Alice later on, but as we the first 15 minutes, guys, it was really an emotional roller coaster to a certain extent, right? Because we get this scene, this fake scene, which I thought was set up beautifully. I wish that was a real scene where we see Detective Ennis on the stand and Perry Mason just grilling him and making him get all sweaty and nervous and trying to get that confession out of him on the stand. We see, this is when I know it was made up, when I saw Hamilton say, "You can't do it. You can't confess on trial." I'm like, this isn't natural. So we all see, again, it was just like kind of a made-up montage scene, a fake scene, if you want to call it that. But I thought it was amazing because I was like, oh, Perry got him. But as we see, this is all just kind of a conversation had between Perry, Della, Drake, and Hamilton Berger, who is going to play a pretty pivotal role in next season, especially with his new hire, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But we see that Della is really pressing, Perry to put Emily on the stand. She's prepped her. She's ready to go. This whole time, Barnes has just been using she slept with George. She's not a good mother, but he's not really giving enough proof to show that she is guilty. So Della's just telling Perry she's ready. You got to put her on the stand. And at this point, Perry is just like on cloud 1,000. He's just so kind of frustrated. He's pushing his friends away from him. He's not taking their advice. We see this kind of scene play out where, well, before we get to this scene, we see, Hamilton gives him his advice, and saying, I would put Ennis on the stand before I would put Emily on the stand. And, Drake agrees with that stance. But really the more interesting moment within this scene here is where, again, I see Perry at this point. He's driven away all his closest allies, right? We see that he's coming off a bit of a jerk. He's a bit cruel to, Della at this point. He points out that, the relationship that she's having, he throws that in her face, and Della tells him, well, I knew you knew about me and my girlfriend, but I never thought you would do this. And again, we're just seeing Perry at this point in time, 8 episodes in, being a lawyer, trying to save Emily's life. It's gotten to him, right? He's losing his composure. He's upset with his friends. He's pushing them away. So I just thought that was a really good scene. And this shows you, again, one of my favorite characters this entire season. I will talk about Perry and just my overall thoughts of the characters. But Della, man, she's just such a fantastic character for me. She's the smartest woman in the room. She's the smartest person in the room. I just love the portrayal of this character, and I love the little wrap up that we get with her. But I just thought that was a really good scene between those two characters. We see Perry and, Pete having a conversation, which I thought was interesting because, again, a lot of us speculated that maybe Pete was going to die and that's how Drake was going to get in the mix. Or, we're never going to see Pete again. But I'm glad that they have not killed off Pete. We know where he ends by the end of this episode, which we'll obviously get to. We see them having a conversation. And in the Perry Mason way that we see Perry give apologies, he doesn't really necessarily give him an apology. But, we see that they come to some type of agreement, which we'll talk about an agreement a little bit later. But we get this really pivotal scene. We get the flashback of the night that Charlie was taken. We see that, she's on the phone with George, and we see a glimpse again of that marriage, man. Matthew and Emily were not meant to be, man, because every time we see them, they're always fighting. This entire season, they've been fighting. So we get a little bit of that night when he was taken. We see her being a mother because we really haven't seen that this season. We see that she says she's a good mother, but we now see it in action, right? We see how she and Charlie were just alone. That was as she says in this episode, which I thought was, as I had mentioned in my previous reviews, Emily's performance was kind of hit and miss for me. The emotional moment, she seemed again, it makes sense. She's out of a different state of mind. Her child's dead. Her husband is left her. Her lover, her affair, the person she was having an entanglement with is no longer around. So she was just at a really offset mindset. So it explains her performance to a certain extent, but I still felt like the actress didn't hit those emotional beats for me personally. But the one emotional beat that she hit for me was when she was, Perry does agree to put her on the stand, and when she's talking about, Barnes is grilling her about the sex with George and not being a good wife and not being a good mom, but she, when Perry asks her, did you have anything to do with your son's murder and kidnapping? She just flat out says no. And the love of my life, it wasn't Matthew, it wasn't George, it was Charlie. That moment to me is where I was like, okay, that was a mother that is upset, that is frustrated, that is mad, that is confused. There's all the emotions you could think of if it's someone in this position. So that was the key moment for me with Emily being that mom there. So as we kind of move forward, another day in trial, we see Ennis and Holcomb kind of, getting cocky with Perry, which I love. Perry got a good shot in there, punches him. Holcomb threatens to kill him, and we'll talk about Holcomb a little bit later, but I love that moment there. We see Perry giving Emily his big speech, which again I thought was a phenomenal speech. There were some lulls in there, kind of got a little long-winded at points, but I did like the heart and the core of what Perry was saying about Emily and proving her innocence. I thought that was a great speech by him. We see Perry we see Drake giving his badge, giving his gun back, giving the money back to the captain. I think he called him Joe, which I thought was a really good scene, a kind of misplaced scene. Let me know what you all thought about that scene. I thought it kind of came out of left field for me personally, him giving his badge, and I thought that should have been done weeks ago or maybe even at the beginning of the episode. I just found that was a little odd placement to put that scene in there. We see the big moment, guys. So the judge reads a letter saying that the decision of the jury is a deadlock, which means it was declared a mistrial, meaning that Emily is essentially off the hook for now. Barnes was like saying we're going to do a retrial. People are running out of the court. The crowd's going wild, but it might have a little bit of an asterisk. But our boy Perry Mason got the W. He wasn't able to get her acquitted off the trial. and drop the charges, but he was able to get a mistrial, which is the next. I'm not a lawyer, but I assume that's the next best thing that you want to have as a defense lawyer, that your client has a mistrial. So we see the repercussions of that. Pete tells, and in between this scene here, which I thought was really pivotal, we saw that Pete and Perry had an agreement that if things kind of go south, I need you to maybe pay off the jury. But we find out in this scene, as we see Pete paying off one of the jury members, that Perry was able to convince the jury, guys. Our boy, the person that I said there's no way, I am convinced that he's a lawyer after 10 minutes of episode 4. But by the end of this episode, he was able to convince the jury to have this deadlock decision. So that was a really pivotal point in showing that there was a little bit of gray area there. Not the moral, honorable way to win a trial, but he was able to convince the jury that that it was a mistrial. So I like that moment there. As we kind of wrap up things in this episode, we're seeing a bunch of buffoonery with Emily, guys. Like, we see that Emily has now kind of taken in this fake Charlie baby. I don't know where this baby came from. I feel bad for the family that their son is now missing and now is being claimed to be the son Charlie, that Emily is now taking in as her child. Very kind of, I don't know if my horror fans out there, very Rosemary Baby vibes going on there in that scene. As we see the episode kind of play out, we see that Birdie and Emily are now working together. Emily is now an integral part in this church and this new movement that they're creating. We see, Drake and his family's back together. So my dark, cynical horror mind, where weeks ago I'm like, oh man, I hope that Ennis doesn't kill his wife and his newborn child, but they're safe. They're safe now. The child is born. They're back home together. We see that Pete is now working with Hamilton Berger, and they're using all the evidence that they got from that previous trial to really take down this church, which I don't know if that will play a pivotal part in season 2, which we'll talk about here in a bit. Perry Mason's firm, he's now using EB's office as the Perry Mason firm. I love this scene here. We see Della telling Perry, hey, in 2 years, you're going to be paying for my a lawyer to become a lawyer. It's going to be, Mason and Street firm. I love that we got Drake, the best detective in town, as Perry calls him. I just love the chemistry of that cast and that crew there. So very exciting things to come with them in the future. And this whole time, we think that Holcomb's maybe the good cop or doesn't know all the bad things that his partner Ennis was doing. So we see that they get paid off by the casino manager or owner, and, they say their goodbyes, and we see Ennis, I hate to say it, but get what he deserves, especially after stabbing that man 30 million times last week. But we see Ennis is drowned, killed by his own partner. So that will be really interesting to see Holcomb and his connection to his dirty dealings and who he's mixed in with. So that was a really interesting scene there. We see Perry goes to a restaurant. We see Sister Alice is not dead. She's not missing. She is now working as a waitress. No blonde hair. We have a brunette, black-haired new Alice. They have a really good, interesting conversation about believing in God, and that's been their conversation all season long. Perry kind of talks about her being a fraud, and she says the brilliant line of, I made the baby come alive, didn't I, with Charlie? But a really interesting point there. But they talk about their loneliness and the position they're currently in. And I think the best part of this season finale was at the end of the episode as the credits are rolling. Again, if you guys go back to my season 1 or my very first review of this show, I haven't seen any Perry Mason show previously, no books, no novels, no nothing, no movies. But as those seasons went by, I did my research. I saw some of the, some clips from scenes. And the thing I love about the old school Perry Mason theme was that song. And the best part of this episode was the rearrangement of the classic Perry Mason theme, which I thought was so dope, so cool to me. So overall thoughts of this finale, it was solid. It was unfortunate that we didn't get to, get the official she was acquitted of being guilty of killing her son, but we get the mistrial. So there's that victory to be had. Pete is now working with Hamilton Berger, which again, you all told me that Hamilton Berger is essentially the rival of Perry Mason in the original show. So I think they're setting the stage for that, especially with Pete joining the forces over there. Drake is now part of the team. Della is on, again, she's my favorite character this season. Her and Drake were fantastic for me. And she's always the smartest person in the room, like I said, and I'm really excited to see that back and forth and that relationship between her and Perry. I think the whole EB thing is kind of off the books now. I think his storyline, I wish John Lithgow was handled a little bit better, but they're using his offices and honoring him, going to do right by people. And Perry is now officially, he's no longer a private, sneaky, slimy private investigator, but he's now a full-on lawyer, and that's what we're going to get moving forward in season 2. But again, I thought this finale was solid. I thought the season, man, again, if you go back to episodes 1, 2, and 3 review here at Movie Files, I wasn't the biggest fan of this show. I thought the tone was all over the place. I think it had an identity crisis. But as episode 4, 5, and definitely 7, it was a slow burn, but everything started to pay off. These characters started to flesh out. There are still some things that I like to explore, and I'm just going to transition to my thoughts for season 2. More of Perry Mason's family, his son and his wife. Him being in the war, him being now this attorney. Are we going to see, let me know in the comments, do you guys want to see them do a whole season based on one trial like we got this season? Or do you want to see maybe 1 or 2 episodes focus on a trial and he's on to the next and on to the next? And it's kind of, I think what the original show was, every episode was a different trial. So do you guys want to see that in a season 2, or just a long drawn out trial that we got with Charlie and everything with Emily Dotson and the church, which again, are they going to play a part in season 2? Are we going to get the church in Baggerly and Alice and Birdie? Are they going to be integral to season 2, and all that stuff? So let me know where you guys want to see for a season 2. What characters from the show do you want to see be implemented in season 2? And just let me know, what do you guys want to see when we, I don't know, it's going to be 2 or 3 years before we get season 2. But let me know in the comments, guys. Again, I thought this was a solid season. It changed my mind by episode 4 because I was not on board with the show very early on, but it was a slow burn, but it earned a payoff for this show. And again, let me know all your pros and cons about this finale, the season, and what you hope to see next season. So again, guys, it's been an honor and a privilege to be here every week talking Perry Mason with you all for the last 8 weeks. What can you expect from me in regards to another shows to review? Well, we got Lovecraft Country, which I wasn't able to get an early screener for, unfortunately, from HBO, but I will be watching that week to week. Every week we're going to be here every Sunday or probably Monday mornings as I do these reviews. Mondays, I will be giving you my thoughts on the latest episode of Lovecraft Country. We got reviews for Project Power later this week on Netflix. We have a watch along for Birds of Prey and a lot of great things coming for you all. So again, thank you for watching these reviews. As always, like, share, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of those new videos. I can't thank you guys enough for the support. Hope you guys are being safe. Hope you have a great week, and we'll see you in the next video.